Many people. Roben Farzad, who this is his show that I get the guest host, has a question. I'm going to try to play it, so I hope you could hear it. So here's his question for you.
Here, so flattered and honored and stoked to have you on Full Disclosure. I have a couple of fanboy questions, kind of in Song Exploder style. Two songs I'm a huge fan of. Waiting for a Girl Like You, the landmark Foreigner song from the early 80s. And Def Leppard's Photograph. You were asked to play keyboard on both. On the former, it was the haunting beginning to the song. And on the latter, a lot of people don't realize that keyboards were essential, I think, to the guitar background. And you got to work with someone as elusive as Mutt Lange. Can you please tell us about how both experiences came to happen? Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, so I was actually living in Paris, working as a street musician, as a busker. I would get up every morning and go down the metro and sit on my backside playing Bob Dylan songs, like with a guitar case in front of me, hopefully getting filled up with centimes until I could afford to eat. And I aged 19 or something, and I got a call from a friend in London saying, yeah, Mick Jones is trying to get a hold of you to do a session. I'm like, The Clash, yes. And he said, no, it's a different Mick Jones. And I didn't know much about Foreigner, but the other Mick Jones is a really nice guy, good musician. And it turned out that Mutt Lange, the producer, who was co-owner of a publishing company and recording studio in London called Zomba with some South African colleagues, had heard a tape that I'd sent them when I was looking for a publishing deal, and he really liked the synth playing. And they were approaching the end of the recording of the Foreigner 4 album in New York. They'd put keyboards on the whole album. They weren't very happy with them. And so they invited me to fly over for a couple of days and just sort of try out some ideas. And so I flew, I had to put aside all of my pressing engagements in the Paris metro, for a couple of days and fly to New York. And the first stuff that I did, they liked. And so they said, look, can you stay on for a few days? And it ended up being a month. During the day, they were doing vocals. And at night, they would let me in the studio with a relief engineer to record keyboards. And they'd come back in the morning, and they'd often say, look, you've got these 6 tracks, these 7 tracks that you can use, see what you can dream up. And they had this ballad, right? That I didn't know them as a ballad band. I'd heard their sort of more rocky stuff, but they had this lovely ballad, and it was very simple, but it just sort of started with a Fender Rose that just sort of went. Straight into it, right? And I thought, okay, I could actually create something ahead of that. And I imagined this sort of very dreamy, atmospheric thing. I'd always been a big Brian Eno fan, I liked his music for airports and so on. But we didn't have polyphonic synths in those days, so it was not easy to create sort of dreaminess that you can. I had a micro Moog that played one note at a time only. So there's no way I could get dreamy with that. But what I did was, they gave me these tracks to work with. And I'd read that 10cc used to record vocals where they'd put like a different sound of ooze on each different track. And then they sort of play chords by just using the faders on the mixing board. So I basically did the same with keyboards and created this intro before the song itself came in. And so that was the intro that you're probably familiar with, which sort of sounds something like this. and that's basically the sound of me, playing those faders. And the band came in the morning; they really liked it, and then I think they decided they wanted like a bit of a synth intro before the vocals start. I think it's pretty. Mick Jones came up with this language, sort of little synth, arpeggio thing before the vocal starts. Yeah. So that was that one. All right. So then Mutt Lange also produced a couple of Def Leppard albums, and he was doing those in London, and he had me come in, and I mean, my contribution is pretty minimal to Def Leppard. He wanted me to sort of basically double some of the guitars with keyboards, to sort of fatten out the sound. So I had to do it a string at a time. So he had the guitarist sort of show me the inversions that he was playing, with the chords, and then I had to pick out each individual string and play, double that note. And I mean, Mutt is an incredible producer, but he's the most annoyingly fastidious man in the world, and drives people crazy. I think with Bryan Adams, it took him 5 months to get a drum sound.